It's now a month since the government announced its Malaysia solution to deal with increasing numbers of asylum seekers coming to Australia. And we're still waiting for the deal to be finalised, let alone for the first transfers to begin. In the meantime, detention centres are overflowing, and the government's had to open or plan extra facilities around Australia to cope with the numbers. That's infuriated local communities who've had unwanted detention centres lumped in their midst, including the town of Woodside in South Australia. It's now been home to the Inverbrackie alternative place of detention for 6 months. I visited Woodside last week to check in with residents at the pointy end of the Gillard government's asylum seeker policy. Woodside is full of proud Australians, if the number of flags is anything to go by. Normally it's uneventful here, but not so 9 months ago, when with no warning, the town learned its army barracks were being converted into an immigration detention centre.
How dare you think you can leave it weeks before you let us be informed about what the hell was going on here?
I'm more than happy to welcome any refugee that's had their status assessed and they've been assessed that they are risks and they're welcome in Australia. Let them move into Woodside. I'm more than happy for them to spend their money in the pub, in the food land, in the bakery. But until that time, they do not need to be in such close proximity to a small country town.
The government seems to be more concerned about helping other countries and these people letting them in to help them out with education, with protecting them, yet what's happening for us?
We've come to Woodside to ask what happened next once the centre got up and running. The Immigration Department's doing everything it can to keep this detention centre low-key. There are no signs identifying what it is, the residents are out of sight behind high fences, and there have not been any Villawood-style riots. But none of that placates those in town opposed to it.
I find 5 channels is enough to pick from.
The Woodside Community Action Group meets regularly at this pub.
You put 400 people on one side of the fence and give them an internet cafe and give them house cleaners and give them door-to-door, their groceries delivered door-to-door, and educate their children and pay so that they're not paying a mortgage or rent. You do that to 400 people on one side of the fence and leave everyone else on the other side of the fence to fend for themselves, you're really going to tick some people off. And that is exactly what the federal government's done. They're treating people on one side of the fence differently to what they're treating the people on the other side.
We have to look at people who are able to come into this country and assimilate with our values and with the way of life that we've established.
Look, you're getting off track.
The group's very conscious of being branded racist, and when Alex wants to speak more freely, Bryony shuts her down.
The thing that worries me is that people with cultural ideologies that really don't sit very well with our secular country, and particularly people that put their culture and their religion ahead of our Western democratic secular legal system and things like that. I'm very concerned about the thought of Sharia law, even in a little way being...
Stop.
Why?
Stop.
Not allowed to say that.
Just stop.
But we've been talking about Sharia law in the media.
Just stop. Ronnie, what worries you about that? We're getting off track.
The opposition's not based on any tangible differences in Woodside's daily life. In fact, some of the local businesses are upset there's not been enough impact. They think the government's overpromised on the economic benefits. Doug Mansell is the head of the local Chamber of Commerce.
As far as work for the community, as far as the business side of things, the facility itself, I don't think is 100% active at this stage.
The only place where there's a genuinely obvious difference is the local primary school. We're not allowed to identify these Inverbrackie children who are bused straight back to detention at the end of every school day.
So, Leigh, this is the area, the main base for our Inverbrackie students.
They have a separate classroom where they learn English and maths and the basics of Australian culture.
I think trying to quietly put it out to the community via our communication that these kids aren't getting anything special, they're getting the same things as our mainstream kids are getting.
Very good.
Very good.
Chris Cotton's one of the local parents who's relaxed about the situation.
I think a lot of people have been concerned about the security of their houses and their children. I don't think those concerns have been grounded in good facts. There has been a lot of hysteria whipped up initially by certain elements within the community, and most of those have been groundless.
Are we going to have the opportunity to go and visit people? Are we going to know who they are?
Like Chris Cotton, Marilyn Pennick supports the centre. In fact, she was one of the only people to speak up in favour of it at last year's town hall meeting. About the only thing Marilyn has in common with those opposed to the centre is a concern about secrecy.
When we do get information, it sounds really good, but when it comes to actually getting into Inverbrachy, medical people going into Inverbrachy, people who really want to help in a positive way, it is very controlled.
730 tried to breach the wall of secrecy and began negotiating with the Immigration Department and the Minister almost 2 months ago for permission to visit with a camera. We offered to make significant concessions to get inside Inverbrachy, including that we wouldn't film any detainees, only their facilities, and even that we'd allow the Immigration Department to vet our camera tapes and erase anything they were unhappy with. We were unsuccessful. Now here's the thing, those are the exact conditions under which I've been allowed to film inside Guantanamo Bay twice by the US military. So apparently Australian detention centres are less open and transparent than the most notorious prison on the planet. The mystery around the centre allows rumours to grab hold in the town, fuelling fear and opposition.
We hear all sorts of rumours coming out about tensions, police being called out, people coming over the fence and wandering around, ambulances being called out, but you can't substantiate anything.
The South Australian Ambulance Service tells 730 it's had 60 call-outs to Inverbrachy, but it won't say of what nature. It was the lack of transparency about the centre that infuriated Woodside residents in the first place, and it's one of the things still rankling them now. Then there's also the question of where does it all end?
I wouldn't like a prison to be there, or a sewage farm, or a landfill, or anything like that either. But my concern is that the fact that these people can still keep coming.
Woodside's a handy snapshot of Australia-wide attitudes, because whether it's the residents who want a more compassionate approach to asylum seekers or those who want the door slammed shut, the anger is all going one way.
So I think you could say 100% of us that have got involved or that have an opinion all think that Julia Gillard and her Immigration Department are ripping us all off.